Hey, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in with me. I hope you guys are having a wonderful Saturday. Okay, so today we're gonna do relationships again, but part two. We got a male perspective today, and his name is Dante. So I'm gonna just add him on. Hey, Dante.
Hey, how you doing? How's everything?
Everything's good. Thank you so much for joining my show today. I really appreciate it.
I'm just happy to be here on this luxurious day.
Amen. Amen.
It's gonna be a good day.
It is.
It's gonna be a good world. So
Right. Hello. I know
yeah,
that's right. That's the truth.
yeah.
Why don't you tell my viewers about yourself?
I'm a stand-up comic. I'm an actor, and I've been doing stuff with Comedy Central and stuff like that. I've done Blacklist, Power, Fighting, a bunch of credits that I've done on different things. John Wick 2,
Oh, wow.
Ocean's 8. Yeah, I've been acting for a long time for about 20 years. I've been doing comedy for about 20 as well.
Okay.
Prior to that, I was a male stripper for 10 years.
Hold up now.
Yeah. Yeah, I was a male stripper for 10 years, and then I actually ran an escort service for 6 years.
Wow. Wow. Busy man, huh?
Yeah, I mean, amongst other things, but we'll get into that. We'll leave
A
that
whole
behind.
nother, right. That's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
What made you become get into being a relationship guru?
Well, because I was a male stripper, one of the things that you have to understand how women perceive attraction.
Hmm.
If you don't make any money. I mean,
Hmm.
now, mind you, I mean, we're talking about I was between the ages of 20 to 30. I'm 54 now.
Okay.
So a long time ago, and about 60 pounds ago. So is that, but uh understanding that was just something that kind of happened, because you have to do that in order to earn money.
Right.
And then when you look into the perspective of how women perceive attraction so much different than men,
Hmm.
they also see relationships and social interaction, the social dynamics is very different. And then I would just have a lot of friends that would always have girl problems. Guys always like, oh, I don't understand women. And I
Right.
would be like, well, I do, you know.
Right. Right.
And so I've always kind of helped my friends out. In 2006,
Hmm.
I was best friends with Patrice O'Neill, comic that passed away in 2011.
Wow. Yeah.
He was really big on Opie and Anthony's show and on Comedy Central, and he did like the Comedy Central roast of Charlie Sheen, and
Okay.
no, he did
Okay.
yeah, Charlie Sheen. And we did a radio show on Celestial, well, on Sirius Radio at first, called the Black Phillip Show. That show, after my buddy passed away, he had a stroke and he passed away in 2011. My homage to him was to continue the show. We call the show Black Phillip because somebody said that he's like the Black Dr. Phil. And so they called him Black Phillip. And then when I took the show up and I restarted the podcast, which called Beige Phillip because I'm a little lighter than him.
Hmm.
So we
Hmm.
called it Beige Phillip. And then we ultimately rebranded it a couple years ago to make it Man School 202. So that's the
Okay.
podcast now. It's Man School 202. And so, 2006, we did about 13 episodes in the course between 2006 and 2008, which wasn't a lot, but it ended up on the internet and it became like this cult favorite. And people are still, there's hundreds of thousands of views on it that people are still listening to it, which is
Hmm.
weird because it was like long format. It was like a 3-hour show and people
Wow.
listen to the 3 hours of it over and over, and they read,
Right.
they quote. It's funny because I get fans who will quote the shows, and I have no idea what I was talking about in 2006.
Right.
So there's that, and along with that, so I started doing the show. I've been doing it for 8 years. We've had every Tuesday. We just kind of put up the Patreon, which is a subscriber base thing where I do a lot of tech, like relationship technique and
Hmm. Hmm.
pickup and all kinds of stuff behind the scenes. So there's, if you want to If anybody wants to sign up for my Patreon, it's Man School Patreon, Man School 202. And the podcast, you can just Google Man School 202. We've been
Mm-hmm.
around for about 5 years.
I can't hear you. Nope.
No?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Okay. All
Okay.
right. So um we so I started, and I was getting a lot of questions, email questions, and I was asking the email questions, and then I just started a consultation business. So I've been doing a
Okay.
consultation business for about 5 years.
Mm,
And it just grew, and then I just, I think it's something that people really don't understand, and
mhm.
they're constantly trying to figure out. And so just there's always a market. I mean, one of the things about especially with the internet and the whole information era, three things that are evergreen on the internet is
Mm.
making money, losing weight, and relationships.
Right,
Everybody's
right,
trying to lose some weight. Everybody's trying
right.
to get is in or out of a relationship, and everybody's trying to make
Trying to
some
get
money.
money.
Right. Um, so that's how I kind of got into it.
That's awesome. I hope, everybody's paying attention and they do check out your podcast. I know you also have a YouTube channel, right? The
Yeah,
same name.
yeah.
So I have 6 questions, not that many.
Okay.
And they're just different questions and basically just, from a male perspective, which is you.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So the first question, it says, how do I know if someone genuinely likes me and it's not just for sex?
Um, Here's an interesting thing about this. And I get a little trouble about this. I think people go, you know, um, everybody doesn't. I don't think anybody's necessarily looking for a relationship. And if they are looking for a relationship, that's a problem. To
Mm-hmm.
just look for a relationship, I see it as a problem. Not because
Okay.
I don't think that people should be in relationships, but the person you're with should be the reason why you're pursuing a relationship. So
Right.
if you just want a relationship, chances are you're just going to get a
Get a
relationship,
relationship.
which is going to end up being shit anyway because it wasn't really about the person. And
Right.
so when people go, I don't know if it's going to be sex. I think what has to happen is I think you have to go. People are three-dimensional. You're
Mm-hmm.
physical, you're intellectual, and you're intimate or emotional. And
Mm-hmm.
all three of those are equally as important. And you find people that go, well, the sex, well, I don't want to give up sex, and I don't. If you ask anybody which is more important, different people will come up on different sides of it. And the
Right.
reality of it is that they're all equally as important.
Right.
That doesn't change simply because you think it's more important. Because if sex is particularly your issue, you want to make sure the person is right or something. You're not going to know that.
Right.
There's no way to know that. You have to put yourself out there. You have to meet people. You have to engage with them. You have to be intimate with them. And all those other things could be great, and then the sex could be horrible, and the relationship goes to shit anyway.
Right. Right.
So it's unfortunate, but you got to kiss a lot of frogs to get a prince. And so I think if you move forward with an honest and an authentic, three of the principles that I talk about on my show all the time is ACE, it's an acronym for ACE. It's authenticity, credibility, and empathy. So
Okay.
authenticity in terms of truth, always
Mm-hmm.
tell the truth. Um, Credibility is say what you mean and mean what you say, do what you say, make promises and keep those promises, and have the empathy to see what else somebody is going through in a particular time, so that you can relate to them. Now,
Right.
if you approach with those three principles, you find people you find people who are approaching it, and you find people, some of them not, but you're not going to know until you know. So
Right.
I think the main thing is to be the best version of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Work on being you so that you can be the best version, so that you're confident enough about what you bring to the table that the minute somebody is not up to par or they're not giving you what you want, you can leave and not
Right.
feel like I want to hold on to this simply because I don't want to be lonely.
Right. Right. Which a
So,
lot of people do that.
right, sure,
They
sure,
use their
sure.
loneliness, try to fill it in, you
Right,
know?
but it just you can't shoehorn that in if it's not going to work. I always say relationships are some of the easiest things in the world if we simplify it. But just know what your non-negotiables are, and then never negotiate them.
Right.
So, but you got to be honest about your non-negotiables. Like for instance, if you say somebody's fidelity, not cheating is the most important thing,
Hmm.
and then somebody cheats on you and you stay, then
Right.
it was negotiable, you
Hmm.
know.
Hmm.
So you got to be honest about who you are and what you are, and then when you move forward, that kind of navigates through all the nonsense. And what doesn't come out in the wash comes out in the rinse. So if somebody's just about sex, you're gonna find out. Just pay attention. The problem
Hmm.
is when we're so motivated by loneliness or by insecurity, we're
Hmm.
just not paying attention, you know.
Right. Right. Well, that's another question. Talking about insecurity, how do you help, a man with their insecurity without making them feel inferior,
You mean as a woman, or how do I personally help?
No, as me as a woman, how do I, from a man's perspective, you are the man, right?
Listen, the bottom line is it's not really. Listen, you have to be who you are is going to come out. And if you're not somebody who's supportive, we're going to know that you're not supportive. Again, the problem is because you feel like you have inadequacies. You're willing to know. A man is usually, and a woman as well, willing
Mm-hmm.
to negotiate their non-negotiables.
Mm-hmm.
So the way you have to fix that is you got to fix the things that are broken on you. Or at least it's not even the fact that it's something that's broken, it's the fact that you perceive that these things are lacking.
Mm-hmm.
So if you got a couple extra pounds, I know guys that won't date a girl under 250.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's their thing. That's what they
Yeah.
find attractive. But if you feel as though your weight is an issue, you that becomes a part of how your own self-image, and then you communicate your insecurities, because even if you don't say it, even if he doesn't have a problem with it, in your inner self, you are not who you really want to be. And so you kind of feel like you're shoplifting, you know what I
Okay.
mean? There's
Okay.
a commercial I refer to a lot. There's an IKEA commercial that comes on, and it's this lady. She's buying a bunch of IKEA furniture, and
Mm-hmm.
she gets the bill, and the bill is really cheap, and then she runs out and she says, "Henry, start the car."
Yeah. Yeah.
The,
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen
the
that.
reason why she does that is because she feels like the prices are so low. She feels like she's stealing.
Right.
So a lot of times people are in relationships and they feel they're dealing with somebody who they don't feel that they have the value to be with that person, and
Mm.
so they feel like they're shoplifting, and so they're
Right.
trying to get out before they don't want to be found out that they're not who they say they
Who
are.
they say they are.
So the
Right.
only way you build the confidence, the only way you really become confidentially, bulletproof, is you got to actually be the guy that you are. So there's no shortcuts. I mean, I teach pickup artist stuff and techniques, and I'm not going to say that those things don't work, but ultimately there's an incongruency between the techniques and who you are. A
Mm-hmm.
woman is going to find that out anyway, and a man is going to find out. We're
Yeah.
going to, and if you've been working on yourself every day, it's easy to go, you're not who you say you were, I'm going to go.
Right.
Or you're not who you say you are, and I'm not, and you can have a discussion about that and what you need more of, but you got to first be settled and rooted in who you are. So that means if you got a few pounds, that means you got to lose the weight. If you can't dance, that means you got to take a dance class. If you're
Right.
not that smart, that means you got to read books. If
Right.
you're not that interesting, then you got to travel. So you have to cultivate your personality, because it's honestly, it's a contract, and
Mm-hmm.
you're selling yourself. You're going, this is what I have to offer. If you're selling something that you know is a great product, then you can move through the stations of a relationship with the confidence that you need to.
Right. Right. No, I totally agree with you. Okay. Another question. Is it okay to have a relationship with your ex even though you're in a new relationship?
I so again, I'm not a very, first of all, I don't feel like I have the right to be judgmental, but I don't think anybody has a right to judge what your particular uh proclivity is. You know what I
Okay.
mean? You know, I've I for years I dated multiple women and they knew about each other and stuff like that, and sometimes I didn't, and it all changed to whatever my particular flavor, whatever I was into. So what I'm saying is, that's a really broad question that you can't really,
Answer?
yeah, you can't. I mean, because there's so many variables involved in
Mhm.
that. I
Okay.
mean, was he abusive? Was he
Right.
emotionally abusive? Was it, are you just staying because you don't want to leave and because you're so accustomed to the old that you don't want to try the new?
Hmm.
There's a number of things, but I think that going back to the whole principle of ACE, you got to be honest why you're still doing this. I mean,
Right.
if you broke up with them, there's a reason why you broke up with them, right? And
True.
if you're
That's true.
going back, there's a reason why you're going
Right.
back. And I think you have to negotiate whether or not why you're going back is more important than why you left. And if you're
Right.
really honest about that, if you're not just, I mean, you can't let, I always say you can't let emotion have a seat at the table.
Hmm.
So if you're doing this out of fear, it's you're not nobody makes a good decision based on emotion. So
Right.
you got to remove yourself and say, is this honestly what I want to do? I had counseled a young lady who was dealing with a guy who, ex-con, and he got
Hmm.
out and he was, I love you, I love you, I love you, but he's still hustling.
Hmm.
And I'm like, look, I'm not telling you what to do, but if he's hustling, this eventually is going to touch you. You got a daughter. So if you think that you're going to be able to keep these things separate, you're not.
Right.
You're staying because you don't want to leave, because you
Right.
don't, or because of whatever that is, but you're not making decisions that you
Are the
should
right
be,
ones?
because we
Right.
know what the right decision is. We're
Right.
trying to, usually when I get consultations, I do, like, if you go to Dant'e.com and you
Hmm.
click on consult, you can consult. But most of the time, I'm telling people what they already know.
Right.
um, I'm just being blunt and open and honest about it and not judgmental so they can hear it from me because I'm a stranger.
Hmm.
But I mean, it all depends on what the nature of the relationship was, and so I think it's a case by case answer to that.
Right. Well, that makes sense, right?
Mm.
Depending on what was happening, and all that. That definitely makes sense. Okay. All right, another question. It says, when should I sleep with someone?
When you want to sleep with them.
Period, right?
When you want to sleep with them. But I mean,
Period.
again, this is about you deciding, you got to be honest about what your intention is. Do you know
Hmm.
what I mean? I find, I mean, look, we just got the orange idiot, out of the, and so everything with that was comes from disingenuousness and
Hmm.
selfishness and
Hmm.
self-preservation and fear and control. If you're if, I counseled plenty of girls. I actually have ex-girlfriend of mine who I counseled for years, and she's 55. She's on her eighth engagement.
Mm.
She's got like 8 rings.
Right.
And so she knows the game. But one of the reasons why I think the relationships don't last is because she's not really going into it with a genuine idea. She wants to know the technique to gain the upper hand. And the bottom line is, I mean, I was the same way when I was younger. But what I realize now is, look, I want what I want,
Hmm.
and if you want to give it to me, that's great. I want you, and I want what you have to give me, and I in turn want to understand what you want back from me, and it should be, if not a fair exchange, a amiable exchange. So
Communication, you
right.
know?
So, but if I want something that you can't give, or if my intention is to bend your will into something that you don't want to do by using techniques, we all know that all falls apart in the first
Mm-hmm.
place. I mean, the biggest thing about the Me Too movement that really was insane was the fact that you had men who didn't have charisma or weren't charismatic, and they wanted to bend the will of other people.
Mm-hmm.
Be, so you're just using people like a Kleenex, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so if you operate on that level, then I think that becomes obvious. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of times that's a symbiotic relationship where you're abusive and somebody wants somebody who's abusive. I mean, when we grow up in relationships and we watch our parents and there's an abusive situation. That's the model that we use for our future relationships.
Right. We feel
So
like it's normal, basically.
right, so it feels normal. So even when you're being respected and treated nice, that is actually more painful
Mm.
than what you're accustomed to. So even though he might be knocking you upside the head, if that's what you're most comfortable with, that is what's normal to you. And a respectful, kind of productive, progressive relationship is actually becomes more painful. And what you'll find is men and women both will find ways to sabotage that to get back to the normal. And the only way you
Wow.
can fix that is you gotta recognize that that's what the pattern is.
Mm-hmm.
If your
Mm-hmm.
pattern is, and because there's always a pattern. Like, we don't just do this once. I'm quite sure you have some girlfriends that are drama queens. It's always a problem, and it's always a problem, and they always think it's somebody else, but
Yeah, and it's them.
it's them exactly.
Yes. Yes. I have many friends like that.
Yeah.
Okay, another question. It says, my boyfriend won't put me in any of his social media postings. Does this mean we are not a real couple?
I don't understand. So look, I mean, I think there's something to this, that somebody doesn't want anybody else to know that
With
you're a
somebody,
part of their
right?
life. But on the other hand, that I mean, I don't really put a lot of my personal business on social media anyway.
That's another thing. People don't like personal information out.
I mean, especially me being a public figure, people
Mm-hmm.
are people are mean and they're sabotatory, and they just like to see chaos. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's why I don't do it. And it doesn't really, but you have to understand, I'm also not trying to hide something from
Right,
anybody else. So
right.
so I think the question is, um she has to ask herself, why does she want to.
Be
And
shown.
right, so she wants to be seen because why? Because she wants to be validated.
Right,
So, but if she's not validated in the relationship, then the question is, why is she in a relationship that she doesn't feel validated in the first place? Everybody
right.
works on their Facebook profile. Nobody works on their real profile.
Hello.
There's serious a situation where people go out on vacations just so that they can take pictures for the gram. So people are
Right,
not living, and they're not being present. They're not present in the moment. And so I think she can have a conversation about what it is, but I don't really understand it. It shows a lack of confidence on her part that she's wearing
mm-hmm.
it. I don't even understand why she's looking at it as
Right. Like, why
you're
does it matter?
this is your man, and
And he comes home to you
he
every
comes
night.
over, and you have a physical confrontation. I mean, I'm a little bit more old school because the only reason why I do social media is for business purposes.
Right.
So I'm not trying to show off. I'm not trying to
Mm-hmm.
show you what I got. I don't want you to know what I got.
Right.
I think, because I think that what I have to say and my perspectives are valid and helpful, and they come from an honest, open and honest place. And if you don't want to listen to it, it's fine. Then you're wrong.
Right.
But
Right.
but the
And
bottom
you're
line,
wrong, right?
yeah, right. So the bottom line is that if you're looking for this validation, I think the first, if I was consulting one, the first thing I was go, why do you need this validation? Why do you need this in any? And honestly, if he's not putting you on social media because he's creeping, you're gonna
Right.
find out that he's creeping anyway. That
Everything
that
that happens in darkness comes to light, you know?
right. And I think what I don't know if you listen to basketball, but I don't know if you know who Meta World is.
Mm.
So Meta World's a guy who he's on, you would know him if you saw him because he's a public figure. But
Okay.
some dude threw him, I think it was the Clippers, threw a soda at him, and he went up in the stands and he choked the dude, right?
Okay, yeah, I think so.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
but he ended up choking a kid that was next to him. It wasn't the guy who threw the
Oh
thing.
my
So there was a
God.
whole
Yeah.
big thing. But the guy who threw the soda, the first thing the NBA did was they took away his season passes, like $10,000 season passes.
Wow.
And so here's a guy who loved basketball, couldn't control himself, and did something that was basically violent and disrespectful.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have to lock him up. He didn't have to get beat. All they had to do was just take his tickets. He just lost access to the thing that he loves
He
the
loves the
most.
most.
So when you, as a woman, if you're putting forth the best version of you, and you're taking care of your man, and you're anticipating his needs, and you're not selfish, and you're not, abusive, and you're not unappreciative, that is what your value is.
Okay.
If he's fucking up, all you have to do is just take his season's pass. You
And
take his
that's
season,
it.
and that's it. And that's the worst punishment in the world, because now he's basically left with a vat of awful bitches
Right.
who
Hello.
didn't do any of the things that you would do. So
Right.
in a relationship, you try to you be the best version of yourself. You treat people the way that you want to be treated, and that is your leverage. I know if I stop talking to somebody, I'm a dude, I'm 54 years old. So first of all, I got a guy. I'm an older guy, so I got a guy. So if you got a problem, plumbing problem, I got a guy. If your
Right.
car is crashed, I got a guy. If you need a carpenter, I got a guy. I've you know, I'm not broke. I mean, I'm not rich, but I'm not broke. I've done things in my life. I have things. So if you're with me, there's things that you're gonna learn that you never knew. You're gonna go places you never went. You're gonna do things you never did. You're gonna meet people you did, and I think that's pretty dope. I think I'm pretty dope to hang out with. Now,
Right.
if you disagree, that's fine,
Right.
but go find somebody else who's
Right.
even gonna rock like I'm gonna rock. Because I know
Right.
I mean, I literally have girlfriends of mine from when I was 20 who have married, and they're swinging back. Hey, what's on? Because they're not being the best version of themselves, and they're not moving on. They're in the
Right.
same place. So I just think you have to. That's the key to being bulletproof, is to put forth the best, and put forth the best that you can put forth, because that's your leverage. When you take that away, that's what
Mhm.
your leverage is in the relationship.
Well, like, correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like everybody, they say, in your relationship, we're so the same, but I feel like you shouldn't be the same. You should be your own individual. You know what I
Well,
mean?
yeah,
Like,
I mean, I guess I'm saying that is, if you're working on being the best version of yourself in terms of what you perceive is the best version of self, you can't do that. I mean, there's things you could do. Look, I mean, if y'all work out, you would have got a boyfriend or husband, and y'all work out together. That's great. But when it comes time to pick the weight up, you got to pick it up.
right,
She can't pick it up for you. She might be, you maybe motivate you, or maybe help you, or set you, whatever it is. But the bottom line is, the work, you have to do the work. And when you do the work, you feel confident because it's done. You know, it's just like anything else. You can get, like, women will wear their Spanx. They wear their
hmm,
Spanx. Why? Because they don't like what they look like without the Spanx.
without the space, right,
So there's always that insecurity, even though they look good at the moment. Underneath that, they know, because you can't lie to yourself. You know
right,
what you look like without the
right,
Spanx.
right,
So instead of doing that, be the person that you are, and then you don't, and then you could be proud of what it is, and you can put off. You automatically put out a different positive energy that makes you more attractive
right. When you are confident like
when
that,
you
when you like,
are who you are. I'm saying this is who I am,
hmm,
and I'm going, yo, check it out. If you want
hmm,
to, tell me if I'm wrong.
right.
So
Amen to that.
yeah.
Okay, last question. Okay, how long should you date before you decide to get married?
um, I don't think that's. Listen, I think that you need to get. That all depends on you. Depends on how present you are.
Hmm.
Um, so I think some people, and this goes back to the same thing. It's like, I want to get married, especially, you'll find this in Latino communities, in immigrant communities. Like, you got to get married, you got to get married. And so it becomes about how you're perceived. It
Hmm.
basically becomes about your Instagram likes in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
Mm-hmm.
this is what I perceive happiness is, and this is what I want. And so,
But that's a false happiness, right?
right, none of it, because it always ends up in a shit place anyway. The only thing that you can do is just be honest
Mm-hmm.
about how you feel and how you don't feel, and somebody can also say, hey, I don't feel the same way, and that's fine. You gotta move, like you said, like I said, you gotta kiss a lot of frogs to find the prince. But what also happens is, as you're working on yourself, you're evolving. And so sometimes the person you're with is not evolving at the same speed. Sometimes you outgrow them. I
Mm-hmm.
think what happens is, because we're insecure, when it doesn't work out, or when it look, if a guy cheats, there's a few reasons why he's cheating. Either you ain't good enough,
Right.
right? Or he's so insecure that he's trying to. Hold on, did I lose you?
No, yeah, I don't see you anymore.
Hold on 1 second. I'm
It's
sorry.
all right.
Um, the there's either you weren't good enough, or he didn't know what he wanted in the first place, and the bottom line is, this really, look, I understand how we could be mad at somebody for being dishonest.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be honest. The reason why somebody's being dishonest is because they're insecure about who they are in the first place. They weren't
Mm-hmm.
really honest about who they were. So, like, there's been times when I was, with multiple women, but I was like, look, I'm not ready for this. This is what I'm
Right.
doing. You want to be down? You could be
You were
down.
straight up though. You were straight up.
And if you don't want to be down, that's okay too.
Right.
But there's a certain level of confidence that you have to have, and you have to feel like you're worthy of multiple women or multiple relationships. Because if
Too much.
not,
That's too
you're
much.
lying. You're lying about what you think your worth is. If
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense. So,
No, that
like,
makes sense.
this is why a guy or a girl is lying and creeping and stuff, because she's got more on her plate than she thinks she deserves or he deserves, and so he feels he has to lie about it to keep him.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you feel like, yo, this is how I rock, this is and if you don't, you don't, and if you do, you do, then I'm giving you an opportunity to say, yo, is it better for me to be with this dope dude who I
Mm-hmm.
really like, or do I want to get some cornball dude
Right.
who I can have all the time, but I don't want him around? You know what I
Right.
mean? But I think that has a lot to do with ego and possessiveness and stuff and insecurity, and so you're not really looking at what you're asking for. You're not really defining what it is you want. I think you have to do both. But in order to do that, you got to be honest with yourself, look in the mirror, and really see who you are to do it before you do any of that. You know, I got a I mean, I'm 54. I raised other kids. I was with women with children. I raised a daughter and a son and stuff. But my first son is 1 year old.
Oh
And,
wow!
and
Congratulations.
and one of the things I realized is that what we do is we raise kids, um, and it's like, if you got a laptop, a laptop, you back it up from the time machine.
Mm-hmm.
But when you back it up, you put all the viruses that you had in all the malware and stuff into your children. The difference is they didn't get to watch the porn and get the
Right.
experience that got the viruses in the first place.
Right.
And so you have kids that are incapable of adapting and coping, when they're and we just download that. We
Mm-hmm.
download that, and then so they're fucked up because we didn't fix ourselves.
Right.
So if you're fixing yourself, I think, and you really have an understanding who you are, including the things that are insecurity, your
Mm-hmm.
insecurity. So, for instance, I'll give you a little example. I had a situation with my dad favored my sisters over me, right?
Right.
And the way I learned to cope with that was, whatever I wanted in life, I got it. So if I wanted a fur coat, if I wanted a convertible, if whatever it was, if I wanted jewels, I went out and
Mm-hmm.
got it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was like, in a way, I was like, I'm not gonna let you tell me what my worth is, right?
Right.
Now, here's the interesting thing about that. That ultimately became my issue with weight, because I don't not indulge myself.
Okay.
So, I'm always I was always taking time to prove to my dad that I'm worth it. You don't get it from me. So I mean, now my dad passed away in 2011.
Oh, wow.
But I'm still, for many years after that, I was still proving to him that so if I
Wow.
wanted a cheesecake, I went and ate a whole cheesecake. If I want,
Right.
so there becomes this thing where you're fighting this unseen battle that you don't even know you're fighting. And only way you can get there, you got to strip that back and see where this overindulgence comes. So my overindulgence was financially. My overindulgence was a lot of times with women. It was because I was like, I will not be deprived, and it was my way. But my dad was already worm food. You know what I mean? He had already passed away, and I was still fighting that fight. And a lot
Right.
of times we have that trauma, and we're responding to certain trauma over and over, and it's fucking up the way that we act in adult life. So you got to really peel back the layers and see what your mistakes are and your insecurities are, so you can fix those things, so that you can present yourself and be honest about what it is you really want. It's okay to not be, like, you
Perfect.
want your space, or I don't want somebody around me all the time.
Right.
And it's okay to say, listen, I like you, but I just don't want nobody around me all the time.
Right.
But a guy will lie about that because he wants some pussy. So
Right.
he'll be like, oh no, we go. Nah,
Yeah.
you gotta be honest, not with the intention of hurting, but to give somebody a real perspective. Because the bottom line is, even if I'm dishonest, eventually you know what it is.
Right.
So if this chick is asking about her Instagram, she already don't trust him.
Right.
She's either overly insecure
Mm-hmm.
and clingy because she
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have any self-worth, or he's a dirtbag.
Right.
One or the
Right.
other, or maybe they're both insecure. But the bottom line is, if he's a dirtbag and you know he's a dirtbag, why are you fucking with him?
Right. Exactly. At least have the like, from being honest, at least be able to have the choice to be like, I don't, you know what I mean?
But
From
yeah,
being honest.
and I'm in 54 now. So even if I don't have the choice and I'm deceived, it's so. I mean, first of all, most of the time it has nothing to do with you.
Okay.
You may be used or you may feel used in that situation, but it really has nothing to do. It has to do with their particular insecurities. And
Right.
so when you find out, you just go, okay, and then you
It's
eliminate.
them.
You take the season pass.
Right.
You don't got season tickets no more. We can't.
It's gone. It's gone.
Right, when you come to the garden, no, you can't come in here.
You can't come in here.
You
You is
can't come
not
in here.
allowed.
Well, why? Why? Well, yo, I don't. Let me talk. No,
No. Right.
we're clear. We're clear, and
Right.
it's fine. It's fine that that's who you are. It's fine that you're insecure. I understand, but you just don't get none of this no more.
Yeah.
So I think that's the my years of and a lot of my opinions have changed a lot. It really starts with yourself when you're working to be the best version of yourself, and then when you put that forth. It doesn't just because here's a quick analogy, and then I'll shut it down. If I don't know if you ever seen Antique Roadshow. You ever see that show, Antique
Yeah, I've
Roadshow?
seen that. Yeah,
All right,
yeah,
so
I've seen that.
somebody will find a Tiffany lamp in a basement, and then they'll take it to be worth 10 grand, right?
Right.
So I always ask people, what was the lamp? I'll even ask you, what was the lamp worth when the lamp was in the garbage?
Right. Worth nothing, basically.
Well, that's what people answer. But the bottom line is, I would ask you the same question. What if I took 10 grand and put it in a paper bag and I threw it in the garbage? What is the paper bag worth? What is the 10 grand in the garbage worth?
10 grand?
10 grand. Still worth 10 grand.
Right.
So,
Even though it's in a bag. Okay, I
right.
get what you're saying. So
So
even though the lamp is in the garbage, it's still a
it's
treasure,
where it's the
basically.
right. Now, the point is, but here's even one feather. Just because, so when you go to these experts and you go to the Antique Roadshow, they know what the value is. And so they tell you what the value of it's worth 10 grand, right?
Right.
But the lamp was always worth 10 grand. And just because you're not smart, or the person that you're dating is not smart enough to know what your value is, doesn't lessen your value.
Amen
You're
to that.
still worth 10 grand. They're just too stupid to know it. And it's okay. It's got to be okay, because some people are just too stupid to know it.
Right.
So you go, oh, okay, I get it. You're just not smart enough to get what my
To see
value is.
all of this. I
Right,
hear
right.
you.
Yeah. And
Right.
but I mean, you got to be honest, and but that forces you to be skeptical about who you are, because you can't just be in your own echo chamber and you look
Hmm.
like shit and you're an asshole.
Right.
You get this all the time. I'm a strong woman. You just can't, like, no, you're not. You're a
Yeah,
cunt.
that's
You're being a bitch. Like, you,
exactly right.
so you got to be honest and work on yourself and look at yourself to see, so that when you are fixing these things, like, I mean, I've dated a girl and she was like a fan of mine, and then um she was like, sometimes the aesthetics ain't what the real thing is, right? So what she's basically saying is, oh, I thought you were this, and I thought you were this, but you're not.
Right.
But I know me, right?
Right.
And the people around me know me, and how, and she saw how other people treated me and the respect that
Right.
people. And
Right.
so I'm like, bitch,
You're
like
the one that's the problem.
you're corny. I go, you're corny. First of all, you was a fan and you was checking
Right.
for me. I wasn't
Right.
looking for you and you're checking for me.
Right.
Second of all, we're in a situation where now, because you feel insecure, you want to bring me down a peg, but you don't
Right.
define me because you didn't build me.
Hello.
So
I like that. You don't define me because you didn't build me.
the accolades is like a saloon door. It swings both ways. If you allow people to make you feel better about how they feel about you, what their
Mm.
judgment is, you also allow it's great when people think you're the shit until they think you ain't shit.
Right.
But you give them that power,
Power.
and it
Right.
swings both ways. So if you feel better because somebody tells you you dope, then when they tell you you ain't shit, that also applies. You gotta be in a situation where you have control over your own emotions and control over who you are and what you are. And the only way you can do that is you got to take a real look at what your flaws are, your insecurities, what you want to be, and then you got to be what
That.
you want to be, within reason. And a lot of times I find you find yourself that you're way more, what your options are way far beyond what you think they are. So,
Right. Right. No,
I
I
would
I
never
agree
have
with you.
I would never have thought that, like, I do the consultation business, and I've had over 1,000 clients that call me from Wales and Mongolia. I didn't even know Mongolia was still a country. England, all through the UA, East Coast, West Coast, Florida, Dubai, Iraq. I had guys from Iraq. I've had guys from Canada,
Wow.
all over and but my intention was always just to be truthful. My intention was always to be kind and help people. And my intention was always to understand the empathy of other people, and what that other people have insecurities and they go through trauma,
Hmm.
and those things affect how they think. And if I spend my life trying to help people with that, then that's pretty dope,
That's
for
a
me.
good way to live. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely, bringing light to people's darkness. You know
yeah,
what I
it's
mean?
always dope. It's always dope.
I really appreciate you coming on my show.
Yeah, I'm so sorry it took me so long to connect
No,
with you,
no,
but
no, I'm not gonna bust your balls.
all
Not
right.
today. You know what I mean? You what's the word? You redeemed yourself.
Okay. All right.
Thank
Cool.
you so much, Dante. You guys please check out his podcast,
Man's Food
Mansfood
202.
202.
Yeah. And Dante,
Mansfood
if you want to book
202.
time with me, you can go to Dante Nero, DanteNero, DanteNero.com. And you can click on consult and you can book time with me.
Thank you so much,
You're
Dante. I
very
hope you
welcome,
have a
man.
great weekend.
All right. Thank you. Bye bye.
All right, bye-bye. All right, guys. Now that was fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. I'm going to leave you with some positivity. Let the beauty of what you love be what you do. Love yourself, love each other, and remember, be real.